Welcome to the Recovery Cast, brought to you by Hills and Rangers Private.
Hello and welcome to the Recovery Cast, proudly brought to you by Hills and Rangers Private. My name is Oliver and I'm a former alcoholic and addict now in recovery. The Recovery Cast is a podcast created by people in recovery from alcoholism and addiction for people in recovery from alcoholism and addiction. This podcast is meant as a support tool for those in recovery. Everyone who participates in the podcast is in an active recovery program. We are not affiliated with any one recovery methodology and will focus on a variety of different types of recovery, including 12-step recovery, otherwise known as Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous, and things like Smart Recovery, Celebrate Recovery, Recovery Dharma, Cognitive Behavioural Therapy, and more. And a quick disclaimer, this podcast is intended to be informative. A podcast alone cannot support your sobriety and recovery, so we suggest it only as one component of a daily recovery routine. For more information on what recovery is, go to www.rehab.melbourne. Slight slip up there, Alexis.
I know.
We will
stop myself from being like, sucker.
You got to be positive about somebody trying to attempt something, and you got to say, you can do it, you know? Yeah.
I believed in you, man, but you let me down.
No, never mind. Not to worry. What are we going to do? What are we reading about today?
Today is AA Daily Reflections for the December the 21st.
Cool.
The topic is listen, share, and pray. When working with a man and his family, you should take care not to participate in their quarrels. You may spoil your chance of being helpful if you do. Alcoholics Anonymous, page 100. When trying to help a fellow alcoholic, I've given in to an impulse to give advice, and perhaps that's inevitable. But allowing others the right to be wrong reaps its own benefits. The best I can do, and it sounds easier than it is to put into practice, is to listen, share personal experience, and pray for others. I love that line. Allowing others the right to be wrong reaps its own benefits. Why
does it reap its own benefits?
Because you've got to allow people to have that experience for themselves. You know, like people have to learn. People don't learn, you know, like you can bear witness to other people's behaviors and make a decision not to act out in that way. And like, obviously, like do your best not to anyway. But you can't tell people how to live. You can't, when people are, we can only make choices for ourselves is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And you know what I reckon it is? I reckon by meddling in somebody else's sort of downfall, you're softening the blow of the disaster that their addiction brings to their life. And if you make it, that's basically enabling, really.
Yeah, it
you
is
know,
enabling.
in a sort of roundabout way. If you let someone crash into their rock bottom, they're going to become ready. But if you stop that from happening and you start taking them to meetings or you force them into a rehab when they're not actually ready, you are hindering their shot at recovery in a way, I think, which is, I mean, we have to allow others to fuck up, basically.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, very much so. And I can think of times in my life where this is like rung true for me as well, like especially like in regards to some of my acting out behaviors that came out in my early recovery and things that my sponsor did, you know, and instead of her like she's never told me not to do something, but she's just been like, well, when I've done something like that, this is what's happened, and you know, it kind of sucked, but I'm here for you anyway. You know, and it was never you shouldn't be doing this because that's going to happen, and then blah 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 blah. You know, and I would have rebelled against that. I would have been like, bitch, shut up.
Yeah. Yeah, you can suggest or you can tell them what happened for you so that they have at least a little bit of knowledge, but then they have to actually walk themselves that path.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
And we have to be humble enough of our influence on the situation, which is like often little to none, and remain aware that any pressure we apply to a person's circumstances or experience can backfire and often cause more harm.
Profound.
Yeah.
Nice one.
Well, like I've been in that situation myself as well, you know, where people have told me what to do and I've literally been like, go and get fucked, and then gone out my way to like make sure that that circumstance blows up so much worse than what it possibly could. Like I do the same, like bad behavior, but like when I have an argument with someone and they say that I'm doing something, I will go out of my way to do that just to be like, yes, I am doing that. That's exactly what I'm doing to you. Like, it's not good.
Yeah, well, it sounds, you know, I think it's a very complex situation. And if we I've got this written down, if we control and try to force someone into something they aren't ready for, we can be stifling and prohibiting them from coming to their own conclusion. But it's very different today because, I mean, it says when working with a man and his family. I think that was very, you know, back in the day, AA stuff where you would go and visit an alcoholic in their home and do a 12th step call, which is totally, you know, that doesn't really happen these days.
Yeah, we don't do that anymore.
No.
We respect people's privacy and anonymity, and especially people's families, you know. Sometimes, though, I've always found it interesting and, like, encouraging when I've witnessed people come in, like their parents or their family members
so
attend.
cute.
Yeah, isn't it? Their family members attend meetings with them as support. And, like, I just think that's really wonderful.
That
like,
is nice.
Not only to open them up to, like, you know, what you're doing to try to better your life and try to save your life, but also, like, it gives them a bit more insight as to what it's really like, you know, from hearing other people speak about their journey.
Families learn too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it can be a dangerous slippery slope though if the parents drag the kid to the meeting.
Yeah.
You know, that can be bad too. I mean, it's very, very tricky, and I think you know, Hills and Ranges Private obviously offers family counselling and family support as the client goes through treatment. The family are included as well, and that can also provide, you know, a host of information and just sort of break down the sort of guesswork of what the family's going through. You know, the counsellors will say, well, look, this is what your loved one is experiencing right now, and this is what you might be experiencing, and that's normal, and this is how you get through it. It's sort of support for everybody involved.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, my family had a little bit of that at the rehab that I went to, but nowhere near as much, which is, it's great. I mean, it's, at the end of the day, the onus is on the person who wants to get into recovery. You know, they have to do the work. They have to pull themselves out of that.
Yeah.
The rehab will help. It helps. It sure helped me. I wouldn't have been able to get clean and sober without going to a rehab. There was no way I would have been able to stop at all. I tried for years by myself, but what happened when I left was I did all the groundwork. I did all of that groundwork, and you know, there were times I think where my sponsor just had to listen, share and pray and just let me do my own mistakes.
Definitely.
Yeah, and ultimately, you know, I was ready because I was truly sick and tired of being sick and tired.
I can relate to that as well. I don't think my sponsor had to really put in much work because I was so ready, you know, like, and I don't think she would have anyway, because it was never about her being like, you need to sit down and do this, blah, blah, blah. You know, it was like it was always me being like, all right, I've smashed through this step. Like, when are you ready to share it? Like, blah, blah, blah.
Give me relief.
Yeah. Like, I'm on a roll here. Like,
I can't live this way anymore.
Let's keep this going. Yeah. There's nothing left for me to do except build my life back up from the absolute destruction and chaos that it was.
Yeah. And look, if you're listening and you're at that stage, you know, you're ready to build your life up, then I only have one thing to say to you. You can do it! Oh, this soundboard is going down a treat. Okay, now that brings us to our other topic, which I guess is a result of what happens if you try and don't do it correctly, or don't do it the way that works for you.
Forcibly try to get recovery, you know, like
rather than what,
rather than like actively, like
forcibly, actively,
like white knuckling it.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, you can white knuckle. Well, I mean, sometimes white knuckling works for people, but
okay, yeah, good point.
I mean, I don't know any of them.
Well, I had as we were talking about before we started recording, I had my own experience with white knuckling it. When I first got introduced to the rooms before I had a big relapse and went to jail, and I didn't do any of the suggested things, and I didn't listen in meetings. I didn't really understand what was going on.
You weren't ready by the sounds of it.
No, I wasn't ready at all. I just had a period of clean time, a period of time where I didn't use, and I just got angrier and more resentful as time went on before I relapsed. And then that relapse took me to jail, which took me back to the rooms, full circle.
And then you became ready.
Then I was very much ready.
And we're going to talk.
Oh, sorry.
No, you go. Sorry, I interrupted
and
you.
I
Very
began
rude.
actively working a recovery program.
Yeah.
Go, Oliver.
All right. Well, we're going to talk more about that after the break.
You're listening to the Recovery Cast by Hills and Rangers Private. Now playing daily on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. For more shows, visit us at www.rehab.melbourne.
Sorry, that's all I had to say. You can do it.
We believe in you.
Yeah. Okay. Now, silliness aside, we are going to talk about relapse. So, how does relapse happen, Alexis, in your opinion?
I think that, look, it's circumstantial, of course, but there are similarities in the way that I've witnessed people relapse, in the way that I've had my own pattern of, stopping use and using again. And it's when you don't have support, networks in place, you don't have coping skills, you don't have coping mechanisms. And even if you do, you make the choice not to use them, And
Very
reservations, for me, reservations and resentment were killers and can still be. Those are two areas in my own recovery where I have to work diligently in order to safeguard myself from the idea that I can sit with this and I can feel this resentment for a long time, and I can keep drinking this poison, but I'm not going to die,
Yeah.
And it just doesn't really work that way. But what I've witnessed from watching people relapse in the rooms is how hard it is to get back into recovery.
So difficult.
Yeah. And that makes me, I don't know, I feel empathy for that.
You know what baffles me is if the relapse wasn't that bad and they come back in and they're like, well, the relapse wasn't that bad. I was like, oh, goodness gracious, that opens up this sort of
I've heard people do
thought
that as
of
well.
like, well, maybe I'm okay,
Yeah.
And it just, oh my God.
Maybe I can have a couple of drinks,
It makes me like cringe a little bit in a way. Look, my story is that, it says in literature, people that come to our meetings regularly stay clean. And that is my experience, is that because I've been working a strong recovery program, the ingredients to that big cake is like heaps of meetings, step work, sponsor, good lifestyle, avoiding the triggers, not going out and going to nightclubs and not drinking, all that sort of stuff. I have not relapsed, and it's been 4 years, 2 months and a handful of days. And I think, I therefore can't really talk about this from personal experience because it just hasn't happened to me yet. If I sit in the barber's chair, I'm going to get a haircut at some point. So I just avoid that. I don't go to the barber that, I guess that's just 12-step rhetoric of if you behave in a certain way and you let your recovery program go, lapse and you're running on self-will and you're hanging out with old friends, engaging in old behaviors, hanging around triggers with that weak program or not having a program at all, relapse is going to happen at some stage. And I see that. So there's my experiences from what I've seen other people do, and therefore I sort of keep that in mind for myself, the hanging out with old friends, whether that means that maybe they're not addicts, but maybe you're going to bars and spending time with your old friends that you used to go bar hopping with. Things like that, catching up with people you used to use with, catching up with old friends, those sort of triggering events where you put yourself open to slipping up that is incredibly, incredibly dangerous. And yeah,
You know, even it doesn't have to necessarily be old friends either, but just friends who aren't in the fellowship. I had an experience just recently. I went to my gym's Christmas party, and it was
that's so cute.
Yeah, it was at a pub hotel thingy.
Yeah.
And
Uh-oh.
yeah, I was only there for a couple of hours. I literally just hovered by the cheese board and ate grapes and cheese, and had a couple of people be like, you know, because there was a bar tab and stuff like that.
Get on it, mate.
Yeah, well, I had a couple of the girls I was talking to be like, do you want a wine? Do you want this? And I was just like, you know, no, I didn't want to tell anybody that I was in recovery.
Oh,
and
wow. That's rare.
No, well, I don't really know these people that well. I've just started going to this gym really regularly over the last few months, and you know, I didn't, but I felt pressured. I definitely, you know, and like they weren't putting any pressure on me, but it was the environment that I was in.
Yeah.
You know, so you've got to be careful. Like I want to be able to go out and do things like that while still protect myself. You know.
Would you have done that at 3 months clean?
Definitely not. There's no, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
That's the sort of
keep that in mind, listeners.
That's the important thing.
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely not. Like I couldn't. Yeah, not at all.
Yeah, and for me, look, you know, I'm a musician. I don't really play that many gigs anymore, but I used to, and I used to have to go to venues and, you know, pubs, bars, whatever, and, you know, there'd be the legal drugs there and there would also be the illegal drugs there, and it was incredibly difficult. And you know what, actually now, even though the obsession to use is gone, I don't get triggered particularly, I actually just don't go into that environment anymore. You know, apart from like once every few months, if someone offers me a gig, I'll say, yeah, I'll play. But yeah, I just don't. And it's just because I've learned to build my life around my recovery. And that's why I'm still clean, because if I didn't, then I wouldn't be.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Like, I'm really grateful that past Alexis, like, worked so hard and so diligently to set up present Alexis. You know, like I don't...
Lay that fucking groundwork while you can. You know, just because you've been to rehab and you feel better doesn't mean that you can let your guard down. The work starts when you leave. Like,
absolutely.
As much as you think going to group and learning all these things about your emotions and things helps, you actually have to go back into the world and learn how to live a new life. And it's so fucking different. And it takes a long time to get used to. I'm fucking 4 years clean. I still don't know shit, you know? I've only just moved out of my mum's house, like, 4 or 5 months ago.
That's like the cleaner you get, the less you know, yeah?
Yeah, the more I go down this path, the more I realise that actually there's so much more room for growth.
Yeah, always.
So, I mean, that's a great thing is that we need to learn and we need to stay teachable. We need to stay aware of what we're actually doing, because to slip up, you know, the stakes are really high. You know, it's high stakes up in here. If we relapse, we may never get a chance again. And I am not going to come back into the rooms when I'm, you know, older and have that shame of like, well, I was here early, you know, 20 years ago and I didn't stick around. I'm not going to let that happen, because my life is too good now to lose and to throw that away. I think that the topic is really cool because it says listen, share and pray. And I think that's what it talks about doing in terms of 12-steppy stuff of helping others. But I think we have to do that for ourselves as well. We have to listen, we have to share, and, you know, prayer or meditation is really great too. It's a pretty good foundation for recovery.
Yeah, I second that.
Yeah.
Except the prayer part.
Well, look, you know, whatever
Get a journal,
floats your
write
boat.
in a journal.
Yeah.
Talk to a therapist, talk to a counsellor, and get some good support networks, and then meditate.
You can do it, you know, and it's a matter of working out what works for you. But honestly, like, I'm not that special that I have to come up with my own whole new way of doing things. I just walk the path that others have walked before. You know?
Slight shade there.
What?
I am special.
I am special.
I am special. I'm a unique snowflake who does require.
Yeah. I certainly am a snowflake. Precious little baby. And look, you know, be kind to yourself and just remember.
You can do it.
That's it. All right. Well,
Thanks, guys.
who's taking us out today? You or me? All right.
Get
well,
with the program.
I am with the program. Thank you for
Ooh.
listening to the Recovery Cast, proudly brought to you by Hills and Rangers Private. You can holler at us. An email address is podcast at rehab.melbourne. Send us some questions, thoughts,
Hate mail,
conspiracies, whatever. Or jump on www.rehab.melbourne. My goodness, I need another coffee. All right, see you next time. Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Recovery Cast. For more, visit us at www.rehab.melbourne.